Recently, here on YouTube, I've been seeing a lot of videos where people talk about creating a personal curriculum for themselves to study things in their free time that they maybe have always been interested in learning about but never got the chance to. And some people do it on a monthly basis, I believe. A lot of people are doing it on like a semester basis, especially now that we are in the middle of the back to school season. And although I have seen some people talk about languages being part of their personal curriculum, I don't think I've seen any videos from people who want to focus on learning languages only. So I'm here to provide that content. I actually thought that creating a personal curriculum for my language learning could, in theory at least, be something really beneficial for me for 3 reasons. The first one is that I am simply always looking for ways to romanticize my language learning, and I do believe that pretending like I'm in school can be something that makes it a little more appealing. I do believe that for a lot of adults like myself who have been out of school for a while now, I personally finished my master's in 2019, I believe. The back to school season does bring some sort of nostalgia. Plus, I'm also going to be doing it on my own terms, so there's no grades, no pressure, no hard deadlines. So it should be fun, I think. And the second reason I want to try doing this is because for the last couple of years, I would say I have been pretty consistent at language learning. For example, last year, I would say that I was doing something for my languages on like most days. But something that became really frustrating for me last year was that even though I was studying languages pretty much all the time, I was never consistent with a single language, and instead I would just hop from one language to another. I started the year focusing on Korean, then I switched to Polish for a couple of months, then I think I went back to Italian, then to Japanese, then Italian again, and then I added German towards the end of the year. This year, I have been working on it, and I think I've been pretty successful limiting the number of languages that I am focusing on at the same time to only 2. However, I'm always looking for ways to improve how I study languages in a way. And I think this year what I have not been very happy about is my inability to stay consistent with the resources that I use. So something that I will do is get a new resource or come up with an activity for me to do, and then I'll go all in on that resource or activity for a couple of weeks, sometimes a couple of months, only then to abandon it to do something else, like a new thing that I will also abandon after some short period of time. And so I think creating something like a curriculum should, in theory, help me stay consistent with several resources at the same time. However, and this is my third goal / problem I want to solve, something that I have been really historically bad with is decision fatigue. Like, I do not seem to be able to make decisions in my daily life. I'm not even talking about like big decisions. Let's say I have several activities that I want to be working on. Every single day I wake up, and whenever I have free time to do something for my languages, I just don't know. I can't decide what I want to be doing. And a lot of the times that results in me not doing anything or doing the thing that is like the easiest or the most pleasant for me, which sometimes results in my sort of skills being very uneven. I have talked about how I've neglected grammar and speaking in Italian for the longest time until I could no longer do it. So in that sense, I also hope that having a curriculum or having a set schedule that tells me which day I have to do what will help me reduce that decision fatigue, and at the same time also reduce the FOMO that I have. Because when I focus on something, just to give you an example, a couple of weeks back, I decided to start writing. I made myself a list of 50 prompts, and I decided to answer 1 prompt per day. And I started doing that, and I was doing it for 10 days. I was not doing anything else or not doing much else. For my Italian, I was just mostly focused on writing. But then I also realized that there were certain things when it comes to grammar that I could work on. So I got myself a resource that would allow me to work on those things, and I abandoned my writing practice. I always kind of seem to have this FOMO, like when I'm doing a certain type of activity or like focusing on one resource, I have this FOMO that there's like another resource or another thing that I could be doing. And in reality, it's like not unfounded, because you can do multiple things for your language, during the same period of time. But that brings me back to my decision fatigue. The moment I tell myself, yeah, I'm allowed to work on multiple resources, I then start having trouble figuring out which one I need to do right now when I sit down to do something for my languages. It's definitely an executive dysfunction thing that makes it so difficult for me to plan and do activities that obviously bring me joy. So we're gonna see if the curriculum thing is going to fix it. So what is the curriculum going to look like? Basically, I am imagining that I am currently majoring in Italian and minoring in German. And that setup is also something that feels good for me right now, at least, because a couple of months back when I went back to German, I did not know what that would mean for my Italian. Like, would that mean that I'm now spending less time on Italian? Do I prioritize German? Do I prioritize Italian? But in the end, I decided that this setup where I am majoring in Italian, so obviously it is more of a priority, but at the same time, I'm also minoring in German. So this language is also something I'll be working on. Kind of gives me a little bit of peace of mind, I would say. So what are the things that I'm going to be doing for Italian? And by the way, I was having like way too much fun with coming up with like more academic names for the things that I basically already do, just not consistently, to make it sound like I'm actually going back to school. So the first one is intermediate Italian conversation. Basically, I have been taking 2 italki lessons for I think a couple of months now. I do 30 minutes on Monday and on Friday. So that's something that I've been doing, and that is something that I want to continue doing. So basically, it's just 30 minutes twice a week. That's my first class. My second activity / subject / class for Italian is special topics in grammar. My knowledge of Italian grammar is kind of difficult to associate with a single level, because I feel like there are certain things that are a little bit more advanced that I do have an okay command of. And then there are things that are studied at like an A2 level, prepositions, for example, that I sometimes still mess up. And like to an extent, that's fine, but I do want to work on it. Something that I have recently started working on is this little textbook here that is called Le congiunzioni italiane e altre parole difficili. So basically, this is a book with grammar drills for specifically Italian conjunctions. So words like siccome, poiché, bensì, benché, whatever, oppure, and all this stuff that I am vaguely familiar with, but I do mess them up sometimes, or I will just use the same ones, whereas there's like multiple ways to, indicate like reason or cause or effect or something of that kind, And so that is something that I'm working on right now, but this is a very skinny textbook, and I'm able to go through like 2 chapters in one sitting, and there's only 20 chapters. So I expect to be done with it pretty soon. And after that, I will start a similar one that I have, but that one is specifically for practicing prepositions, but I'm not going to like create a separate course in my head again for each of them. So special topics in grammar is what we're calling it. So when it comes to this class, I'm gonna try to do it 4 times a week. And then there's 2 more classes. So like I've already said, a couple of weeks ago, I attempted to write in Italian every single day, and I managed to do it for 10 days. After that, I fell off, partially to focus on this thing, but now I decided that I'm not going to be doing it every single day. Instead, I will try to do it 3 times a week. So like I've already said, this textbook 4 times a week. So the other 3 days of the week, I will be writing. I will be answering 1 prompt of my list of 50 prompts, where I think I've already done like 13 or 14 prompts or something like that. So with my writing practice, I try to keep it short. I actually time myself. I only give myself 15 minutes to write. Before, whenever I would try to write in Italian, I never knew how much was enough. I would write a couple of sentences and be like, oh, is this enough? I don't have any idea of what to write about. But now I think 15 minutes is perfect, because On the one hand, I'm able to write about, like, it kind of depends on the topic, but usually it's like 190 to maybe like 250 words, which is pretty good, I think. And then another thing is that 15 minutes, if you think about it, like, that's nothing. I really cannot look you in the eye and say that I don't have 15 minutes in my day to practice writing. Yeah, I really want to continue with this activity, but I'm just removing the burden of having to do it daily. And I'm gonna be spicing it up with some other activities, like the ones I've already mentioned. So we have grammar, speaking, writing, and then the last class that I have is modern Italian history, which is just a fancy way to say that I'm going to be reading this book right here. I don't know if you guys can see the cover, but basically the book is called Novecento il secolo scorso, come è stata l'Italia fino a 25 anni fa, visto che ne parliamo ancora ogni giorno. This book, I've had it for a while. I started it and then I abandoned it to probably start something else, but I actually really enjoy it. So this is a collection of articles on different topics about things that happened in Italy in the 20th century. Some of those things were big things that happened on a global scale, pretty much. For example, the rise of fascism is one of those things, right? And then other things are really local. This book is like a mix of history, pop culture, politics. It's like a little bit of everything, and I really appreciate that. This is something that I will be trying to do every single day, just because reading is a part of my daily routine, and this is just going to be reading in Italian and reading this particular book until I finish it, which is not going to take that long. For German, I'm going to be doing 3 things, because remember, I'm minoring in German, right? My core activity is going to be this book. And basically what I want to do is to have 4 study sessions a week that involve this textbook right here. In August, I was focusing on it a little more. I tried to study with the A1 textbook because that's when I finished that textbook. I tried to study every single day. I don't want to do that anymore necessarily, but I do want to stay consistent enough with the A2 textbook so that I can finally, graduate to a B level, because being a beginner is not my favorite thing in any language. So that's what we're going to be doing 4 times a week. I planned it in a way where it doesn't coincide with my Italian grammar learning. I don't think it's likely that I will have enough time to actually sit at my desk and study using 2 different textbooks for 2 different languages. But there will be one day, I think it's Sunday or Saturday, when I did schedule both of them, because both of them I am planning to use 4 times a week. But because it's during the weekend, it is a little more doable for me. So besides this textbook, what else am I doing? My second activity, which is actually going to be a daily activity because it has been one of my daily language learning activities for the last 2 months, I believe, is Closemaster. Closemaster, I've talked about it a lot. It's basically like a glorified flashcards app, although I'm not doing it justice describing it like that. I've been using it consistently pretty much ever since I went back to German. So that is something that I'm planning to continue doing because I do see the benefits, and also because honestly it's fun, and that's partially why it is going to be one of my daily activities, but also because Closemaster, like a lot of flashcards apps, I think uses the spaced repetition method, and so if I skip days, that adds more to my reviews and that just makes it a little more stressful, and I want to avoid that. So yeah, planning to do Closemaster, to continue doing Closemaster every single day. And then we have our third activity, so 3 days a week. The 3 days that I am not using my textbook, I will be working on my reading and listening comprehension. I actually was thinking about it recently, and I realized that as a beginner, I don't enjoy listening as much. Like, I will do it, I don't completely avoid it, but I think I go heavy on listening once I get to like B1 and maybe even closer to B2. And before that, I just prefer to read for the most part. But the way I see it is I will be using Link, which is an app that I like to use for reading and listening, and whatever I do on there is fine. I just have to use it 3 times a week. Currently, I am reading a book, but I am about to finish it, so we'll see how it goes after, but it's all good. I don't have any goals specifically for what to read or listen to, so anything goes. And speaking of goals, I've seen many people kind of assign themselves also projects that they will have to complete by the time they're done with their semester, with their curriculum. And that's not necessarily something that I'm going to be doing just because I don't care to add extra pressure. The thing that I want to, again, work the most on is consistency. I don't necessarily need results other than being consistent, because I know that that in itself will bring improvement in whatever area that I work on. But another thing is that with a lot of the resources that I'm going to be using, like the textbooks, for example, they have something like a test that you have to do basically once you're done with the book. And so I think that to me counts as kind of like a final project, you know. When it comes to writing, I do have one prompt that is kind of supposed to be a reflection on what I have learned about myself or about Italian after having written 49 texts. So that's my 50th prompt. The only thing that I potentially might assign myself a project for is this book, because recently what I started doing, and that something that I really have enjoyed, but I've only done it once, so I don't want to say that I will stick to it, is basically creating mind maps using the words that I had to look up while reading a chapter. It was actually really good, because even though I wasn't trying to make those words reflective of what the article itself was about, looking at that mind map also made me remember better. So I would love to be able to continue that, and towards the end of the book to have like a little notebook filled with mind maps of those like new words that I learned while I was also learning about Italian history. That would be great, but we'll see how it goes. I don't necessarily want to make it more complex than it has to be, because again, the goal is to stay consistent, and I feel like sometimes complexity makes consistency a little bit less achievable. So I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. I guess like one thing that I do want to say is that I felt a little bit, hesitant about making this video, because this is just an idea that I have, and this is a project that I'm embarking on, but I don't know if it will work in the long term. I don't even know if like a week from now I will still be working on this project. Usually I like to share things here that I have already worked on for at least, I don't know, a month or something like that, but I just got so passionate about it that I thought, why not? Maybe even if I don't stay consistent, but some of you like the idea and adopt it in a way that fits you, you are able to get some benefit from it. So I decided to share it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. This week I have been editing that video that I promised you guys about how I read as a beginner. And so that hopefully will be out sometime soon as well. And yeah, I hope to see you in that one or any other of my videos. Bye bye.